man on fire.
Okay, all right. Welcome back. We are here on the Slack line again with the boss.
The boss is coming.
That's a made-up dumb fairy tale name, you
And JWoww.
Wow.
I flipped those. Usually I do those the other way around.
Yeah, welcome. It's early. It's early in the morning.
It's not actually, but we can say it is. Yeah,
6
we are
o'clock,
back
6 a.m.
at episode 10 on the Slack line.
10?
Yeah, we're into double
What?
digits now.
Oh yeah, really?
Not even including the
They
special
sparks? Oh,
episodes.
really?
Yeah, so
Wow,
yeah, and the lost episode.
cool.
Which is I haven't really tried to get it back, but one day.
Oh, okay.
The lost
hidden
one.
one, the
Yeah.
last one.
And
And we are here with
Emily. Yeah,
Hello.
and she's brought her vodka today.
You know what? Start early, whatever.
Yeah,
It's Sunday.
yeah. No, it's not that early, as we said. 6 a.m.
6
Vodka.
a.m. 6 a.m.
And you mentioned that you decided to do a search for decent vodka this time.
Yeah. No, I've been drinking Smirnoff, and it's just not. It tastes like nail polish remover. So my mom was like, "You should step it up. Like, pay $2 more for better vodka." So I'm trying some new ones. We'll see.
So how much is this? $4? The other one was
like
$2.
The other one was like $10. This one's $14.
Oh, nice.
We're sewing it up a few months.
All right, so Emily, tell us what you're doing. What you're up to these days.
Well, I guess. Well, like for actual work, I've been PAing in the industry.
Nice.
Mostly full time, so that's a lot of time. And then I've been developing a bunch of stuff. Hopefully going into pre on a couple of things soon. So.
Cool. What are you doing for those things?
Well, one of them is a mock trailer-y type thing for a web series that I want to do, which I've talked to you about. Matt.
Right.
And then the other one is a trio of shorts, and they're about like a psychological and like shit like that.
Nice.
I'm trying to lock a director, so like let's.
Nice.
If that happens, then it'll be all
Cool.
better.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So we're here on the Slack one. We're going to talk about some cults today, and possibly get into to like maybe the death penalty, as a result of cults, possibly because I mean the news of the week is Charles Manson died last week, right?
Died or was
Yeah,
whatever.
just his black
Taken from
Terminated.
existence.
sludge that is in place of his heart stopped
Was,
pumping
yeah.
through his veins or whatever.
Choppy.
Yeah, I know it was kind of a weird feeling. Like I was, I'm part of this online community where all this news stuff gets posted all the time, and so there's a thread about it, and I go in to post about it, and I'm not even really sure what to say. Like, you don't really want to make a sarcastic, snide comment about the dead, no matter who it is, but like, it's
depends.
tough to feel bad about.
Charles Manson.
Yeah, these people, like somebody like that.
don't
I
know.
watched some stuff on him today, and man,
There's a
this guy was
certain
fucked up.
president that if he died, I wouldn't mind making a couple of jokes.
Yeah. I saw a clip of Sean Hannity
Yeah.
talking about that Roy Moore situation,
Oh, wow.
and I was like, man, if I had a chance to kill Sean Hannity or Donald Trump, I might go to Sean Hannity. Like, the guy is just
Yeah.
fucking scum.
Abomination.
Yeah, an abomination, just a scumbag.
Are we going to our mic test?
I was just about to hit that button.
Oh, no way, man. I'm
Usually,
way ahead.
yeah, usually it interrupts us, and I try to start talking about something endlessly, and then just go like.
And then do it.
And I was also trying to bring up our SoundCloud because totally
I
forgot
can
what we
tell you-
talked
I can
about
tell
last
you.
week.
I can
No,
tell you I've been
I-
listening to it.
Okay,
really?
all right.
Shamelessly listen to it.
Oh, great!
Oh,
I love
nice.
that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Okay, so
guys-
maybe Emily, you can tell us if there's anything from last week that you were like, "Oh, you guys, I didn't like what you said there."
Well, I don't necessarily know if there was anything I didn't like. I thought it was really interesting. You guys were with Jerry and
Mhm.
Kyler. You guys
That's right.
talked about those two parts.
Yeah,
I was like, whoa. double the fun.
Yeah, we ended up talking for like almost 3 hours, and so
You were like,
I could have put it all up as one, but I figured why not split it?
Just
You
split
know,
it. 2 parter.
nobody wants to sit and listen to it for 3 hours. Like, it's
You know,
a
I did,
long
but,
haul.
like, that's
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate that for sure. Yeah, it does have quite a few views on here. Nice.
Getting there. How many thousand?
How many thousand? Yeah, 22,000. Yeah, we talked about the social justice warriors and stuff like that, and sort of kind of binary politics that were going on.
And dick pics.
And dick
Yeah, that was an
pics.
entire episode.
Yeah, we talked. Yeah, one of the episodes purely about dick pic politics, which I'm still confused about.
Dick pics politics.
Dick pic politics.
It
yeah.
really looks like a Donald Trump kind of politics.
It really is it's kind of a political. No, it's not. Dick pic politics. Well, like I was gonna put dick pic policy, and then I was like, isn't that what politics is? It's just like making
Bunch of
policy. So it is dick
I
pic
mean,
politics.
I guess, yeah, it is.
It is
I
the
like that. I
policy
feel like we should
surrounding
coin
dick
that.
pics.
Like that should be like a thing now.
It should be all. This should be only what the podcast is about.
Change the
Dick
name
pic
to
politics.
Dick pic politics.
Policy. I would say maybe. There's
Etiquette?
another word for that.
Etiquette?
No. I will remember. I remember.
Okay.
Okay.
Mumble here.
All right. Well, JWoww remembers. We'll go to our sponsors for today. Sponsors: Mr. Jones brand flavored beverage. Mask the taste of any lace with Mr. Jones brand flavored beverage. Don't go for the Kool-Aid. Go for the Mr. Jones
Yeah.
flavored beverage.
Well, thank you so much for supporting us.
Yes.
It's been lovely. Now we can afford actually a better place.
Yeah, I've heard rumors that that brand is almost exclusively used for like cult mass suicides, but it's just rumors. So
Whoa,
I mean,
man.
they're paying the bills. So
Heard that too.
yeah, we gotta.
Rumors are rumors, and they're gonna be
But I mean,
there
it works.
forever.
Yeah, it's
so
just
don't
allegations,
that.
right? We're not just gonna say no to the money just
Any
because
press is
alligator.
good
You know,
press, honestly.
Yeah.
mass murder. It
Ah.
is what it is.
Yeah, and it's almost cultural, if you think about it.
Yeah.
In some cultures, it's not so bad.
All right. We'll slide on past that one. The mic test from last week, I don't think we really had. I mean, I'm sure there were a few things that people were not necessarily happy about because we're all kind of liberal-leaning people, and if anybody listens that's not necessarily that way, they're probably not happy with some of our chats. But
You can always email us.
yeah.
People
Yeah.
make complaints.
Please do. I mean, I would feed off of some like trolly complaints right now. That would be fun. A little
That would
respond
make,
to some Twitter things or something like that. Some live feeds.
Yeah,
We don't go live yet.
not yet.
Get on it.
I know
That's the next step.
it would be nice to go live on like Christmas Day or something. I
Nice.
think would be sweet,
Or, like,
but that's pretty early on.
Instagram Live.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna lead into our topic of the day. First topic will be cults. Yeah, like we said, Charles Manson died last week, and he was obviously a big face of all that type of stuff. A lot of that type of stuff I think really grew in the 70s with hippie movements and that type of thing. And it's interesting, as I did a lot of kind of background research into cults and things. A lot of it tends to start relatively with the right intentions in mind.
Like
Okay.
simple.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
harmless.
Yeah. I mean, I think Charles Manson, he's obviously got like major mental issues. But he probably, like, I would guess he wasn't necessarily exhibiting like his total loss of mind when he was really that young and like gathering people around him and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. No.
And maybe more of a situation where once he felt that he was getting control of these people and stuff and felt that he could manipulate them, that kind of permeated his mind into warping this whole sort of scheme that he is now like he's just like lost, like if you listen to him talk.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd never listened to recordings of him or anything when he was younger, but apparently, he was a musician and he was
Very
just trying to be,
charismatic.
trying to
So-
be and like they start these like hippie communes, right? Because they don't like the way that the government is working. And, but they kind of just almost always descend into, patriarchal sort of imprisonments almost.
It goes south very quickly, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you have like, it's such a nice idea to be like, hey, let's just go live in the woods and feed each other and make love with each other and all that type of stuff. It sounds so great, and then you get there and it's like, well, somebody has to be funding it, I guess, and somebody has to be
There has to be some
kind of making sure everything is secure, and so
there has to be a leader.
there has to be some type of structure, right? And especially when you get that far removed from like a law-abiding society, you can see how quickly a leader could be like, well, I can do anything I want here.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, I'm untouchable, right?
It's a lot of power.
Yeah. What do you think, JWoww? Like, do they have a lot of this stuff is like American as I went through it. Like, is there much coming out of like Brazil and places like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually a couple of examples. I don't want to be derogatory about it because it's almost a religion for some people, but I think it really depends how you take that. There's ayahuasca in Brazil. I don't know if you ever heard about it.
Yeah, it's a drug that you.
Yeah, you kind of
yeah.
hallucinate, but like people.
It's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, but some of people have like they say it's sacred and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna say anything because it's religion. Of course I don't believe it. I have some friends that actually had taken. My uncle actually he took it when he was really young to the guy that started that in the middle of the Amazon.
Oh wow.
In the 70s.
Wow.
And 80s. And yeah, it's madness and but sometimes it just backfires, on people. And one of the guys that actually took the ayahuasca in one of the churches also committed murders like back 10 years ago, and people were really concerned about it because it is a substance and they were using it, and it was hallucinogenic.
Hallucinogenic, yeah.
That's what I said. Hallucinogenic.
Close enough.
Yeah.
So there's a whole kind of like, I know of the drug ayahuasca. So is it kind of like if you do it, you're looked at that way as like somebody who's in this cult?
No, because
or is there like a separate cult that is just like, this is what they do, and they bring people in to get into their ayahuasca and
I
just
think
like
it
stay
depends.
there?
I think there's like many churches, ayahuascan churches that do.
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah, it's not like it's not very popular, but like people do
It's
go
there.
and.
But it's not like some fringe thing that's like in the fucking woods or whatever. Like it's like in the cities and stuff.
No, it's kind of in the woods, and you go there and you do this stuff, and it's a very strong drug, so people throw up when they have it.
So like a cleansing thing usually, right?
It's kind of like, I don't know, man. People, they do whatever they want. Sometimes it's really weird.
Yeah.
I have another uncle that actually did it, and like he's married to an aunt of mine, and he was just like saying that he's kind of hippie, but like a hippie chic. And so he has a lot of money. He's like has a lot of money, and he says that, oh no, man, sometimes I go to the woods, man, and I take the tea, man, and I just like I freed myself, man. I just like defecate and throw up, and I was like, what? Like, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, apparently that's what it's for. Like, I mean, I think stuff like that is just there's a separate idea of like, well, just doing the drug as like an experiment versus being a part of like a cult that does it habitually and like has like a ritual around it and that type of thing. I remember an ex-girlfriend of mine, we talked about it sometimes. She wanted to try the ayahuasca stuff and like go on a trip and do that type of thing. And I was like, yeah, I'd like to do that too. And her thought was like, well, I'd like to do it like by myself, just like a solo spiritual cleansing thing. And I was like, I don't know like how I would feel about you just like doing that by yourself. Like, a small beautiful woman just like in like with these people like having no control of her mind or anything like that. Like, I mean, I'm sure there are things that go down in those ayahuasca tents that are like not necessarily consensual, right?
Oh, for sure, probably.
Like, is anything that happens while you're on a substance like that consensual?
I don't know, because like they have the people that watch over in one of those churches. Like they don't actually drink the tea, so like,
Okay.
but
yeah.
like you have to trust your
Yeah.
life in the
Yeah.
eyes of these people, you know.
Yeah.
And that was a big discussion back 5 years ago, I guess, in Brazil. Rather they should prohibit the substance,
Okay.
or they should allow because it was religion. So
Ooh.
they're still discussing. I don't remember what they said.
So
on
it's
that,
not
but
not illegal there?
I don't think it's illegal, no, because it's meant to be as like a religious ritual.
Huh. I can't think of any other
No.
thing that is like that. That's like a psychedelic drug or something like
I
that.
don't know, I
That
think
is
like Bob Marley had like a kind of that.
well, yeah, but I mean trying to think of something that is legal purely based on religious grounds.
Well,
Well,
alcohol.
no,
Well,
that's
oh,
not.
You say
maybe
religious,
like
religious
Yeah.
grounds. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Unless you go
it's
to church and
strange.
drink all the wine from the priest, but I don't think it's the case.
I don't
It's
know.
strange. It'd be like if a kid was like drinking in school
like-
or something, and they said like you can't do that,
Yeah.
and the kid
It's
and the
like,
parents were like,
no,
well, it's our
it's
religion.
Oh yeah, that would be a nice whiskey religion.
Shut up, Titcher.
I'm trying to
worship
pray.
here.
Let me pray. All right. That's interesting. So it's kind of more centered around like the drug and the psychedelic sort of nature of it.
Well, yeah,
and-
that's just one example of it. And again, I'm not the best to talk about it because I never experienced.
Yeah.
But I had some friends that actually have done it, and I had a very close friend of mine that she did it, and she said,
Not me.
"Oh, that's so
Oh, it's
unprofessional."
Lambert's. It's
not
okay.
me.
I actually put in the vibrate.
Mine's on silent too.
Anyway, but it was a good experience for her. She said that it freed her and everything, and yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean that's usually the purpose of.
Is it an alarm? Is that an alarm or is that a phone call?
It's my mom.
Oh.
Oh, it is your
It
phone.
is your phone.
I thought it was Lambert's.
I was like,
Son
I
of a
freaked out because I thought it was mine, but I just put mine on silent.
So unprofessional.
I'm terribly sorry. I think I'm not gonna get that raise from our sponsors.
Yeah.
They're gonna replace you though.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like the drug is like. It's kind of hard to explain. Like the drug is not at fault for that cult,
No.
but the cult is using that
as a way.
to like bring people in, right?
I think they gather around for it.
Right.
You know, they gather around the substance.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, man. Like, it's because you're very vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
When you are in some kind of like mind state. So like, people have to be twice careful.
Yeah.
You know, like, well, we can go to Hastings here and like. Maybe you just look someone in the wrong way and
Yeah.
they are into drugs and
Yeah.
they're just like taking a snap, you know.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure that they have those people taking actually very good care of,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what's going on, you know.
That's interesting. Well, it's interesting to think about like the blurred lines between religion and a cult.
I
Like,
mean,
Go ahead, Emily.
yeah. When I brought up this topic and I really started to think about it, I was just like, what is a cult? Like when you say the word cult, you think of the Manson family. And
Yeah.
You think of Heaven's Gate, which is another really
Yeah, I got
famous
that on here too.
But like, or you think of like the extremes, but it really is just a bunch of people like deciding that the beliefs of one thing is their beliefs.
Yeah.
So really, by that definition, every religion is a cult. Like you could say politics are cults as well, like Democrats, Republicans, all that kind of stuff. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think there's cults around like sports and that type of
like
stuff too.
culture.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's that's where like cult never used to have really a pejorative term to it until this type of stuff
Yeah.
started to happen, right? Well, more I think it was more actually a religion based thing, because cults were like, it was like the saint or whatever that you follow, or the god that you follow, whatever you are blessing this ritual to is your cult right now. And obviously, like, things like Christianity and stuff wanted to demonize stuff like that. So I think it started to take on a bad connotation when anybody started to worship anything that wasn't, the Lord Almighty.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as I looked into it, I thought I felt like there was kind of a dividing line between cult and religion, where like it seems like religion tends to follow or believe in some sort of deity, whereas cults usually tend to follow like a person,
Like a
even if
leader.
that person is
Okay.
the one that is like perpetuating like an ideal or something.
Mhm.
It's all about that person. And so I thought about it as like spirituality versus lifestyle, where like religion is more rooted in a belief in something
Superior than-
supernatural,
okay.
almost. Yeah, something that is like outside of our understanding. And a cult is more like, well, this guy understands it, so let's follow what that person
It's
doing.
almost, it's interesting what you're saying, because Christianity, it's like they look at Jesus like that, right?
Yeah.
This guy, so like, is that a code?
Yeah.
Or I mean, like,
But
Or
there's-
did it begin as a code and then migrate to
Yeah, I mean,
religion?
the idea is that like any ancient religion was just like it was a cult at its time or whatever, right? And the only reason that we look at like new religions like Scientology and stuff like that as cults versus something like Christianity is because they're new, and because they seem crazy to us now, because we have all this rational thing that's like, no, like that's not true, but yet we have these lingering sort of
Yeah.
beliefs that are still very, very pervasive through our whole global society, right? That
Yeah.
kind of comically contradict the idea of like even thinking that somebody else's religion or cult or any sort of belief system is stupid,
Mm-hmm.
or crazy or dangerous even,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do we draw that line?
I don't know. There's a very interesting documentary. It was on Netflix a couple of years ago called Kumari.
Okay.
Kumari. And what this guy did is that he was American, but his family was from India. So he actually was born in New Jersey. And he wanted to prove that all the cults were, that he wanted to make a point that people were following wrong gurus. So
Okay.
he pretended that he was an Indian guru, and he filmed that as a documentary, and people actually started to follow him,
Mm-hmm.
Believe what he was saying.
believe in what he was saying, and like people, and it got to a point really bad where he actually felt the power of people like, man, you freed me and
Yeah.
everything. And now it was time for him to say that it was a charade. You had to watch that because
That's really interesting, because I was thinking about that while I was going through this type of stuff. Like, I wonder if someone's ever done that.
Yes, man, and it's tough because
You're,
what
you're
you're
destroying
messing with,
someone's belief.
you're messing with something that it's really sensible inside of people. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
maybe it's not true, but we had the power to touch people in a way. And I guess for a little while the guy that played the part, even if he was making a documentary, he kind of believed that he had a healing power or something. And man, it's hard to watch. I remember I watched that with my girlfriend at the time, and she just went out before the movie was over. She
Yeah.
was really disturbed with it.
Well, it's an interesting question in how far should you take something like that? Like if you're trying to do, like, especially like we're all, like to call ourselves artists and stuff like that and want to prove a point with, our own things. Like, how if you have a chance to experiment with something like that, how far do you take it before you go like, wait, this has been a.
But that's the thing. If you, I think, in his case, he was sure that he passed the point, but if he wouldn't cross the line, he wouldn't know. I think, you know.
Like, what would happen if all of a sudden your followers like wanted to like, I don't know, sacrifice one of their members or something like crazy
but
like that? You
I
know?
know, but like he wasn't actually going towards that direction.
Okay.
It was more mild, let's love, and
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of reports. I think he did it in a way. It's it brings awareness, but I think the people that appears in the documentary, and there were a lot of people that actually sued him afterwards.
Oh.
And I can like, of course, man. You know, you lose a lot of time going after this guy, and then
that's
actually,
true.
man,
Probably like ruin some relationships and stuff like that.
He couldn't say that. I mean, spoiler alert, you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But by the end, he couldn't tell the people. He gathered the people, and he couldn't tell them face to face that it was a charade.
He couldn't.
No. So what he did, he gathered the people while he was on a trip. He made a video, and he asked someone to play the video. Because he couldn't.
That's like texting to break up or something. That's awful.
It is.
So we talked about last week how that.
It is awful, but I kind of understand him in a sense that I think people would actually kill him.
Probably.
You know, like
He definitely would have been at risk for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think he
But,
crossed
like-
the line bad time, but he was making a point because a lot of those gurus in India actually they were. Sorry about that. I'm not gonna talk about your guru. Don't worry.
It's okay, buddy.
But there were a couple of these Indian gurus that were being like they had a warrant of arrest because they were actually raping the women. Because in their minds, and they believe that they have one of these gurus in the film. He says, "I have the right. I mean, I would love to be the woman that sleeps with me because I'm
I'm
God,
a god.
or
Yeah.
something." So that's pretty fucked up.
It's yeah, man. Like I find it almost more interesting. More interesting than the people that can be like deluded and brainwashed into something like that. The people that can delude themselves into thinking that they have like divine powers or something.
It's like psychology. Like it's really like it brings me when I was in high school. We took psychology, and I learned about the Stanford prison experiment, which is it's almost
like the
similar.
kids at Alcatraz or whatever.
Yeah, no, they weren't even. They were in the basement of Stanford.
Oh, okay.
And like 10, I might be getting the numbers wrong. 10 people are like, okay, you're a prisoner, and 10 people you're officers. And within 2 days of the experiment, they had to shut it down because like they were beating each other, and like just the mental of like I'm in control and I can do whatever I want, like totally got to the people, right? And they knew what they were doing. So it's very interesting how quickly like your reality can become something.
Yeah, but you could also argue that those kids, especially like university kids, being like knowing that they're involved in an experiment like that, might be purposely trying to take it as far as they can, versus if they were actually in that situation, whether or not they would act that way. Or like maybe it would, but probably not as quickly, you know? Kind of like a Lord of the Flies type of scenario.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it doesn't all happen at once kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember the actual like. I didn't look it up. I just like was thinking about it, but I
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember reading about that type of stuff too, and it's crazy to think about how innately kind of gross people are.
Yeah.
You know, like left to our own devices
It's awful.
and just, you know, kind of given power and money, how many people, like not everybody obviously, but how it is more often getting perverted than actually used for good is pretty disturbing. Like,
Yeah.
look at human nature.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing. I'm glad we're not finishing the program with that.
Well, we're gonna go to the
Yeah,
death penalty
yeah.
after the break.
So we're gonna get better.
I'm well, we had to take in consideration that all these kids that you're talking about, they had already been exposed to society, whereas in the Lord of the Flies, they weren't, right? They were born. They were.
No, it was a plane crash. They're from like a sophisticated school.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that, what if these people were actually just born in the island without any contact with the society that we actually have? You know, would that be like? Would they corrupt themselves, or would it be better? Would they organize in a more healthy way? Because I think that a lot of what we are living through is because of like society fucking itself up more
Over and
more
over
and
again.
and over and
Yeah, but part of history too is it was great that older cultures and stuff kind of like lived off the land and those types of things versus how we do the opposite kind of. But there are obviously a lot of problems with, lack of knowledge and that type of thing in medicine and those types of issues that I think end up leading to false attributions of power. Like, if you don't know anything about medicine or science or anything like that, and some person touches you and you get better for whatever reason, completely unrelated to their touch, but your body repaired itself, but now you think that person's a healer. In a primitive culture that doesn't have any access to, scientific information and stuff, that can grow into, well, eventually I think does grow into just, hierarchical situations, right? Like, I think there's still tribes and stuff that live in, deep in the Amazon and like on islands and stuff like that, they obviously, I mean, we don't know anything about their social structures, I don't think, but I mean, I think that you'd have to assume that it'd be like any other, primitive cultures that we've studied, which vary from, very nurturing and communal to pretty hostile.
I would like. I think that we have to be open to. I always keep thinking binary. If it's not this way, it will be that way. If it's not, but I would just coming back a little bit for the code that we were talking about, and you mentioned the Amazon and the First Nations there. I would like to share a story that a history teacher told me about, and how different this is from our way of thinking. So the Guaranis, which is like a First Nation in Brazil, they are notorious to be fighters. They are warriors, and they fight between the other tribes. And there's one example of one of the rival tribes. They got one of the guys hostage. Okay. Now this guy that was hostage after the fight, he could walk freely on the tribe. He could have sexual intercourse with a woman, because there it's not like my kid or your kid, it's the kids. They raise them all. So the guy could actually go around and sleep with the woman, and the woman could sleep with the guy. He was going and hunting with the rivals as a hostage. He was not like kept in prison. And by the end, they cooked the guy and eat them, and eat him. Now, it seems very brutal to us, but probably the guy that was hostage, he actually knew what would happen to him. And our mindset, it's very Western, to think. Our thinking, it's very Western. Oh my God, this is so not human. This is so, But that's just the way they used to do things back there. And I don't know, man.
That doesn't excuse cannibalism.
Well, it's not an excuse. It's just like it is another way of thinking. It is another way of doing stuff. And
Yeah,
it's
but
it's another society.
But you have to draw
cannot-
lines at
No,
moral
we
boundaries.
We cannot analyze that by our way of thinking. Otherwise, there's still like cannibals tribes in the Amazon. Otherwise, like the cops or the army would have to fly in and arrest everybody. Hey guys, what you've been doing for the past 2,000 years is wrong, and now you can't do it anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I mean that is what happens when those cultures clash. Like that is what happened when Europeans basically invaded the whole world's indigenous cultures. Like they ran into everything from very hospitable people to cannibalistic people, and
but they
like-
were the one killing. They were.
oh,
the
I
one
know,
imprisoning,
man, I know.
and they
Like
were
I'm
the
not.
one making
There's
people
mass
slaves.
genocides all over
I
the
mean,
place.
You know what I mean? Like these
Yeah.
people come and they say, "Oh no, you were animals and you're gonna be slaves because you eat each other." What? And
No,
now
I'm not
I have them
excusing.
be
I'm
your
not
slaves.
excusing the genocide of them at all. I'm just saying, like, yeah, we can look back on them with historical context for stuff like that and be like, okay, yeah, obviously, it's how their culture is brought up, but at the same time, we can say definitively that is not morally okay to murder people, and
Well,
is not morally okay.
They
Well,
di-
I mean,
they
if you
didn't
want
have mass murders. They would just eat the guy.
yeah,
One
but
guy.
they had to kill the guy for it.
Yeah, but it was not a mass murdering.
That's kind of it's beside the point.
I mean,
One
it
murder
is-
versus mass murder doesn't
think-
matter. It's
I-
Well,
murder.
It matters because, like, well, if you are the person that it's killed, it matters, right?
No, it doesn't. If
Oh.
you're the person that's getting killed, whether the person beside you is getting killed or not, fucking means jack shit.
Oh no, man! I think we had to agree to disagree that, because you see, it's a totally different mindset. They were not doing it because they were mean people. They were not doing it because, but they were.
That
doing
doesn't
it,
mean anything to the person that's getting killed. They don't care. Like, oh yeah,
Well,
It's
of
for-
course
oh, it's
it
such
does.
it's such a
Of
freeing
course it
experience.
does. Of course
Stab
it
me
does.
and
He was sleeping with a woman. He was hunting with the guys. He was not like in prison in the jail,
And then
until-
got
and being
murdered.
being tortured until they do it. Like, they're not sadistic. I think our okay, we're gonna get to that, our death penalty in the next section. I think the death penalty that we face here is much worse to being that this.
I mean,
guy,
I see that
you know,
point.
okay, like almost okay. First, we're gonna get to the death penalty. Very few cultures still have the death penalty.
Yeah,
Like very few, like
But-
5.
but the U.S. still has, right?
Yeah, that's why
And
we're gonna
like-
talk about it. And
All right, and it's a big.
it's
big,
ridiculous
big
that it still
country,
does.
Like, and it's like democracy this and democracy that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not sure really what your point is.
my point is,
Like
I-
that person wasn't
I see
a criminal to that society.
I see his point is like it's like that he got to enjoy his last moments. Like
Yep.
he was doing things.
But was he a criminal to them?
well, he was a rival tribe. He was from a rival tribe.
Is that criminal behavior?
I mean, what is criminal? They don't have a law system. Would you like to go there and tell, hey guys, this is law and this is what democracy is? Do you think it's gonna work? No.
Well, that's the whole point. Is like we've evolved away from those types of.
No, man, we
things.
didn't evolve.
Well, this
away.
is
It's a
this is
different
this is
type,
the
man.
idea. Like you're talking about. Well, if we put if you're just born on this island, then yeah, you'll probably. I mean, not necessarily succumb to like cannibalism and stuff, but your culture will be very different from the one that has learned en masse from each other.
What-
But I think, like, despite all of the flaws that are in the culture that's learning en masse from each other, it's better to be learning en masse from each other than to be living in this bubble and
That's the thing, man.
telling each other that what you're doing is the right way for thousands and thousands of years, and then all of a sudden people are like, whoa, 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 you can't be killing people. And I don't know, you're going to argue that that's okay?
No, I'm not. I don't understand your point. These people were living, and they were not like mass murdering no one. They had the differences with tribe, and they solve it in the way that they could. And actually, killing much less people than we do when we go to war in the Western. You know, dropping bombs from drones and all that kind of shit. So these people, they were actually facing each other while they doing it. Now, what is the fucking difference between going into war and dropping a fucking bomb into people that you don't even know, and actually, you know, hanging out the last days with the guy, and afterwards, like, eating him. I'm not, you know,
I would argue both of those things are wrong.
I think
well, it's not. It's different, man. We cannot argue that culture is wrong. It was the way that they lived.
I can't argue the culture is wrong. I can argue murder is wrong.
Like
yeah, man.
yeah,
but we keep doing it, don't we?
Yeah, that doesn't. We keep stealing from each other. We keep raping each other. We keep doing all this stuff to each other. That doesn't mean that we're just going to be like, oh, well, that's the way the culture is. We have to change it. That's the whole point of our last podcast.
What I'm saying is that we cannot go into a First Nation group, especially living like isolated, and say, hey, guys, have you ever heard of the Lord of our Jesus Christ? You know, that's what happened, and it did not turn well.
No, but we can and should be able to, well, maybe not go in. I mean, that's... Interrupting primitive cultures is a touchy subject and a tough one that I'm not really comfortable throwing my foot into either side, that we should be, like, you know, going in there and influencing them in either way. But that doesn't mean from the outside that I'm going to say that it's okay that they murder and kill and eat each other.
I think the major, like, just to try and save this entire conversation, the major difference between, I think, for our mental state of like, oh, it's not okay to murder anyone. That's just period. Like, whether it's war or whether it's just one person, it doesn't matter. But I think the thing that shocks me the most is, oh, they cooked him up and ate him afterward. Like, that is the line for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my line. Like, so
no, see, my line is, well, okay, so why did they take this person? Because they're from a rival tribe? If that's the only reason for taking this person, then your reasoning is fucking ridiculous.
Oh,
that's no different than killing somebody from a different religion or killing somebody because their fucking soccer team beat yours.
It is tough, Matt. I totally agree with your what you're coming from, but I think you have to take in consideration that it's a totally different way of thinking. They don't think as we do.
I don't think I've ever said that I don't take that into consideration.
I kind of did.
No, man. Like, of course, like I
like,
appreciate that.
My point. I'm not saying I'm not making any point about it. I'm just describing how it is, and like and how different could be. Like, for them, it's not like a genocide, or they're not being mean. You know, it's just
again, but like you're looking at it from the perspective of the people that are doing the murdering. It's like, well, from Charles Manson's perspective, he was helping people. He was helping society by murder these people that he thought were not good people.
Yeah.
And like,
but
who's to say that those people should have been murdered or not?
But
like,
he is inserted in the Western culture. I mean, there are laws here, and of course we enjoy a lot of the technology and all that kind of stuff. But you have to follow the law for a lot of things, you know. So this guy, we don't care if he's like mentally challenged or whatever, or whatever happened to him. But he had to follow laws because he was born here and everything else. We were talking this just before the program, and
well, wouldn't you say that, like, the laws, they're formed from us? Like, we make up the laws.
Who?
People do.
Who is people?
We are the people.
The Western people.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
In our society.
Uh-huh.
But I would say globally, murder is considered not okay. It's illegal in every fucking society.
Yeah. I would get, well, it is illegal and people keep doing it.
Yeah.
And the governments keep doing it.
Okay, so that's my point is that, like, you're saying, well, we're judging somebody like Charles Manson based on the U.S. laws and Western laws.
He was born in this culture. He was there doing that.
I don't understand. I don't really understand what you're trying to get at with that. Like, so
what I'm trying to get is, like, some cults are different than others.
Of course, they're all different than others. Well, they are. Everyone is different.
It depends where they come from. So if it comes from like a First Nation, as the one that I was describing, it's different to judge this, what I said, than from a Charles Manson or.
Oh, whatever. Totally, yeah. I wouldn't judge that. I wouldn't call that a cult. I wouldn't call that indigenous culture a cult. That's their culture. I would call what Charles Manson is a cult because he's taken people and who have the chance at higher moral values and whatnot, and subverted them into thinking that that they should be shaping them towards their own views.
Yeah, but we also were discussing what's the line between cult and religion and cult and culture. I think there's there's a parallel there. You know, because you could oh no, this is my religion. I like drink people's blood, and I've been you know what I mean, like we have to look at stuff by
but are you saying that we should allow that stuff?
Which stuff?
Allow criminal activity?
No, I'm not. I'm not saying we should allow criminal activity.
So, okay, so in the case of this, I guess this is kind of a tough question because it is a class of cultures. In the case of like the Amazonian tribe, if they do happen to come across, our more advanced culture, for lack of a better term, there will inevitably be a confrontation surrounding, well, you can't kill people.
Yeah, but that's what happens.
And
so
just because their culture has been that way for that long, that doesn't mean that they can argue that necessarily it's good.
What they try to do now is just like, because they don't have cars or airplanes or motorboats, so their area is pretty small. Yeah. So what they try to do is like keep this part and these people living as they were, because honestly,
they're not going to grow any further or anything.
And you know what happened? Like when we try to insert these people into society in Brazil, it's really, really sad. It's we are doing like a very shitty job for the past 500 years, I guess, but it's not going well. So a lot of these people, they don't fall into any category of our society. It's really not inclusive. There were these three brothers, the Vilas Boas brothers in Brazil back in the 70s, and they fought for the Indian, the First Nations reservations there, and they got and those people could live a better life with their own land, keep doing what they were doing it, because we don't offer anything better. They come to our society, and it's very frustrating. Anyways, that's another topic. But
no, it's definitely an interesting one. But yeah, so I mean, we've chatted, we've got onto the topic kind of about capital punishment a little bit here. So maybe we'll take a break and have a coffee and a chat on the break, and then we'll sweep into some lighter talk about the death penalty after the break.
I was getting depressed.
Unless Emily, you had anything to add after Joao?
I mean, I think on that whole topic, it's really hard to judge morally the entire world. Like, I think, like, I personally have a set of morals, and doesn't necessarily mean that they have to line up with yours or with Joao's or with anybody's. And I think that is, it's very interesting to think about, like, that this culture exists and we let it exist. But it's so, in my mind, is like there's things that I'm like, oh my gosh. But in their mind, maybe we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing. Do you know what I'm saying? It's so intriguing.
The funny part is that we always keep thinking that we are allowing them to do stuff. They've been doing this a long time, man, before our society, Yeah. Like we do have this thinking of,
like, we own the world.
Like we want the world. That's right. And then we have to make these people more coachable. I don't know, something like that.
It's tough, man. Like, when you're talking about a small tribe in the Amazon that's, not going to grow over maybe a few hundred people ever, there's a case to be said, let them be their thing. But when you have, like large cultures that are okay with, like, stoning and like, genital mutilation and stuff like that. I mean, we have genital mutilation here too, but like, it gets tough to be like, well, yeah, have your culture, when you're talking about inflicting violence on other people.
Yeah, I understand, but like, what if we had discovered the Mayans today? and see those people like they did amazing things, but they also chopped the head a lot of people. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like it's tough. Like it's easy to say when it's just like a small band tribes people in the jungle that's not going to affect anybody else's culture really. But when you have like, you know, hundreds of millions, billions of people that end up, you know, believing in stuff like that, it can be like you have to, I don't know, in my opinion, I think you have to kind of put a foot down and be like, no.
yeah, man. But
No, man.
that's-
Like, I don't care if it's your own country. You can't
But
kill
just-
people for that reason, for any reason.
I understand what you're coming from, but you know, in the case of like the Mayans, yes, like some of the stuff they were doing was horrible, but what the Spanish did was no different.
Yeah, like
they
you're
killed-
never
they
gonna get
killed a
anywhere by
lot of
just like
people.
being like, well, these people murdered people and these people murdered. Everybody's murdered fucking everybody. Everybody has to move on from it and just stop murdering each other.
Yeah, man. Let's love, man.
I love how that said like it's a joke, like it's a bad idea.
But it's like
No.
Yeah, stupid love and taking care of our planet. Who wants those things? Only fucking nerds and stupid
Nerds.
people.
No, man. I didn't want to diminish your
No,
idea.
I know.
I understand what you mean.
But yeah, we'll take a break and we'll talk about. We'll get into a lot morality on the death penalty and stuff too. So yeah, we'll be right back with the Slackline and Emily. All right.
The water it creeps and I'm beginning to weep for all my kin. The water it creeps, yeah, it's getting so deep, it's over my head. Oh high tide is when I ride. High tide is when I ride. The wall closes in, I just continue to swim, waiting to drop in. But no fault of mine, I just cast my line, waiting for the time. Oh high tide, when I ride. Oh high tide is when I ride. Oh high tide is when I ride. The water it creeps, it's getting so deep, it's over my head. The water it creeps, it's getting so deep, it's over my head. Oh high tide is when I ride. Oh high tide is when I ride. Oh high tide is when I ride.
Nice.
All right, we are back on the Slackline here with JWoww.
wow.
and the boss,
That's a made-up dumb fairy tale name, you
with guest Emily Paton. I didn't say her last name in the first segment because
Didn't know how to pronounce it.
no, because her first name, her last name on Facebook is not the same as her real last name.
It's a mystery.
Oh, yeah, all you tricksters out there trying to trick me with your pseudonyms and whatnot.
It's not a phase. You won't understand.
And that is Lambo the Roommate joining us today. He is a steady member of the sports slackline, but here today to talk about something very related to sports, the death penalty.
Can we get that like Law and Order dun dun?
Oh yeah, I could put that on there.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
That would be
The
good.
death penalty
Dun
dun
dun. Yeah, for sure.
Oh wow.
All right.
I
you
think
go.
someone throughout the whole podcast should just do that every time we say it. Like, you don't actually
Death
get the
penalty.
sound.
Dun dun.
Just somebody takes that upon themselves.
Yeah, so before the break, we were talking about cults and Charles Manson and religion and how all that stuff kind of interrelates and whatnot. And kind of got on the topic of morality and how we view that, culturally from outside certain cultures, I'm personally of the opinion that while we have grown in different pockets, something like the internet has really brought us together to the point that trying to live kind of like separate moral societies is not going to work because we have too much access to each other's information that like inevitably things will just change as people in places see other people with rights that they don't have in their own nation and that type of thing. And as we see people that are being, oppressed and that type of thing in other places, you can't help but act, right? And so, whether you think that's kind of, moral or not, it's just going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, that continuing to kind of live in these, different cultures with different money and like different languages and all that type of stuff, it's just going to kind of end up fading away. Not like in a way of like people won't speak different languages and stuff like that and have like, Latino cultures and North American cultures and stuff like that. But as far as like moral issues and stuff like that, I think we'll become a lot more homogeneous on those types of things, in the next
few years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
next few years.
globalization, man.
Yeah, it's just inevitable. And so, as we approach that, we approach the death penalty. The death penalty, only a few nations still have, legalized death penalty. And sadly, or however your view on it, our neighbors to the south are one of those people.
In only certain states, though, right?
Yeah, only certain states. But yeah, so I mean, there's some questions around capital punishment. Personally, I'm not really sure where I stand on it. I have a tough time with it sometimes. I kind of dance between it. I'm definitely like of the opinion that there shouldn't be state sanctioned executions. Like, it's a slippery slope for stuff like that because as soon as you get people in power that are willing to, distort truths and stuff like that in order to annihilate people that are their political, opponents and those types of things, like that is what state-ordered executions can lead to. So ideologically, in a civilized society, you shouldn't have them. That said, some people deserve to be put down. Like, really, like you listen to some of the heinous crimes against like children and stuff like that, and you're just like, man, somebody should just put a bullet in that person's head, And I think we all kind of have those types of vengeful feelings. And it's about, whether or not we can put that aside or should we. So I'll throw it to you, JWoww. You look like you want to say something.
No, I guess when we think about laws and like the global issue, we would address it in one way. But if it happens to someone close to you, like, you can be against death penalty, but still want to kill someone that hurt someone that is close to you, We have that in very deep inside. It doesn't matter how good you are.
Right.
Those feelings, they would appear if something like that happened.
Right. Emily?
I mean, I think it's just it is a tricky topic. Like, I don't really know where I stand, because I think it is wrong to just, and the law, the system is so fucked already that so many people who are innocent actually go to jail, and to an extent there have been people who have been put down due to capital punishment and have been proven innocent.
Yeah.
Right? So there are mistakes, but at the same time, on the same token, there are some people who don't even deserve to live in prison, because prison isn't it's bad, but it's not
Enough, you'd say?
it's not bad, because some jails, you get a roof over your head, you get fed, you
Not people on death row.
okay, good.
That's
I was just
people
about
on
to
death
say,
row
what
do
about
not
death
have a
row?
nice prison
No.
setup.
Good. Okay, good. That's definitely not.
And
doing
especially in the
research.
U.S., that's not the ideal they take towards prison. In places like Scandinavia, and I mean not even really here, but in those types of more socialist countries, jail is more like a rehabilitation center. And it's definitely not that way in the U.S. They're more towards privatized prisons, and
Yeah.
they would probably lean more towards chain gangs than TVs in people's rooms. But we'll throw her to Lambo the Roommate.
Yeah, I mean it's a tricky topic, like you said, but I mean there are people out there that deserve to be put down, and I feel that to apply the law would be not the worst thing. I'm for it, really. It's just like dogs. A dog nips a child, gets put down. If a man touches a child, he should be put down. No different than a dog.
Yeah. Yeah, the tough part comes with the idea of in a civilized society you should be trying to rise above the primal instinct of revenge and stuff like that. But also, as Emily mentioned, I mean, unless how can you ever be 100% sure of a crime unless it's really on videotape or something like that?
Yeah, no, that's a solid point. I definitely
There have been people executed that were wrongfully convicted, and that to me is is a pretty hard line,
Sure,
of
but then
it can't happen. It can't happen.
But can we just adjust our system? I'm not coming up with any solutions or anything, but adjust the system so that is less likely than going on with the system that we were using 70 years ago when it was implied. I mean, it's just the fact that just got to change how those cases go through to try and eliminate the possibility of that even happening.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely arguments for stuff like that. Change like that is super slow, for one thing.
Yeah.
And another is what used to be considered, rock solid evidence against somebody, like fingerprints and even DNA, is not anymore. In the last few years, they started to discover a lot of this stuff is pretty bunk. And people get wrongfully convicted on juries because some DNA specialist will come in and say, I saw in my I saw a video on it, and their key line is in my expert opinion. If they say that, then they kind of absolve themselves from saying it's actually a fact. But in my expert opinion, this blood matches that blood, or these blood spots match the motion of a slash or something like that. And it's all been proven to be pretty bunk, which is scary, but yeah, until you can actually definitively prove that somebody did it, I don't know. I guess a case could be made to have the death penalty in cases where you can 100% prove that somebody did it and it was a heinous enough crime to warrant it. But I don't know. I don't know, man. it's still murder.
Yeah, the problem
know?
is that you cannot. I'm against it, and I would say why, because I think when we institutionalize death penalty, we just create more. Um, there's more space to errors that are grotesque towards what happened. Now, you mentioned some prisons in Netherlands or those European country. There's a documentary called "The House I Live In," and they address a little bit of that and all the prison system. I think there might be a light on the other side of the tunnel, which is like now we are advancing a lot in the how the mind operates and how the neuroscientific approach towards disease and things that we didn't know before, how the brain works. And I guess the next 50 years we're probably gonna have a lot of improvement in how can one actually manipulate someone's brain in a way that a guy that do like, I don't know, rape a kid and then kills a family, which is terrible. How the brain is actually messed up and how they can actually turn that over, because I don't think that these people are normal people. Yes, it's terrible, but I don't think that these people are they cannot be in society for sure. Something has to happen with them. Our first thought is like, no, man, we have to put these people down. But I don't think that we are quite there yet. Now, I think the advances in science for the next few years will be able to actually address it more correctly in changing the mind of the individual, so he can actually be fully recovered from this disease, because it's actually it is a disease. But the problem with this disease is that it doesn't affect the guy that has it, but the other people in society that are killed by it. Having said that, if something happened to someone in my family, like something like that I just described, and I would have a gun, I would probably, and I have the possibility to shoot the person, I would probably do it.
I don't know, man. Like, I definitely, obviously there are people that have like psychosomatic, I think is the term for it. Like, just like issues in their head that are showing them things, giving them a different reality than we perceive, and it can sometimes cause very, very violent problems. I don't think that is the case for everybody that goes on murder sprees. And I do think that there are people that genuinely just like enjoy killing people or enjoy doing something terrible to somebody.
But that's a brain that is not working properly.
I would agree with that, but I would agree with that to the same extent that I would agree that, somebody with, I guess, like somebody with ADD is not really functioning properly, but like,
I think
if somebody with ADD has an issue to the point that they, have like an episode, they just like lose focus. If a person that, it goes off their medication or whatever that is potentially violent, like, they're fucking violent. And like,
And I think to bring it, like, to put a different spin, to like bring it back to the discussion earlier about that other tribe, it's a set of different morals. Like, I think there are people too that just have a completely, like, it's not a physical or like an actual like thing wrong with their brain. It's just they don't have the same like ideals as we do. It doesn't mean that they're actually like fucked up in the brain. It just means that they don't think the way that we think.
Yeah, like
If
a lot.
makes
If you look
sense.
back at like serial killers and stuff, a lot of times have grown up like very lonely and by themselves, and like having to kind of raise themselves, and like that's why they end up entertaining themselves with like killing animals and shit like that, and then yeah, they just can't really tell the difference between, not can't tell the difference, but are like, you know, you're of the mind that it is okay to kill this person that's wronged me, when it's just not. I mean, I don't like. You can argue that you can teach that out of somebody because it was, you know, it's been taught out of a lot of us. But that, yeah, I don't know.
I feel like in that situation, if you go into like the science of it and adjust the DNA or the functionability of the guy's brain, or kind of take that route rather than the death sentence, I feel like that's kind of like you're on this really uneasy bridge where it could totally just be a ticking time bomb, because you take this guy in, you rehabilitate him, and what do? Do you set him back out onto the road? Do you throw him into jail where there's even more taxpayers' money being spent on this guy right after his rehabilitation? Like, if the severity of the crime is there, just get the issue done and over with, and be certain. And I understand the whole argument to, but the whole wrongful
Conviction.
Wrongful conviction for people. But that I just think comes down to an adjustment of the system and the processing of these cases.
Yeah, that's definitely like kind of a separate problem. That's like, you know, nobody should be getting wrongly convicted.
Yeah.
And it does happen, you know, regardless of murder or death penalties and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, like, again, like all of this stuff, like it leans me so hard towards like no. But then, like, every once in a while, there's, like, a Jeffrey Dahmer or a Charles Manson that you're just like, put a fucking bullet in that guy's head and get it over with. I mean, a lot of the arguments against the death penalty, too, is that it costs more to put somebody to death than it does to keep them in jail for their whole life, with it, which is true. The only reason it is that, though, is because of, like, the legal red tape involved with appeals and stuff like that, and how much it costs the state to, you know, pay lawyers and those types of things to go through all that type of stuff. Because like a bullet doesn't cost that much, but I mean, you have to prove it, right?
For me,
sorry, I just want to like the last thing is, so as much as I really want to lean that way towards no, part of me thinks that there should be at least some special cases for it.
I understand. I think the problem is that when you open an exception, there will be a lot
what
of
falls into the
exceptions.
exception, right?
You know,
that's where the slippery slope is.
And the problem is that it varies from society to society, because even though, as you said, we have a more like a globalized way of thinking of crimes, there's still some societies that they would use that death penalty towards political interest and justify that, saying a lot of bullshit about people that were actually convicted to death. Now, in Indonesia, 20 years ago around, there was a lot of murders being committed by like militia, but supported by the government.
Right.
And they would say that the people that were being murdered were communists. And the idea of communists to people and how they actually put people thinking about communists is like, oh, communists are people that would rape your kids and kill your wife. And this idea, but the idea was like in the television. The idea was all around.
I know,
people would think about it about communists in that way. In these states,
It's science.
The States was a little bit like that, you know.
It's still like that, man.
You know how they came across with the communists and stuff. Of course, not killing them, but sometimes they did. But
there are
like
small sections of people
like
that would.
massive killing them.
No.
In Indonesia, were I think that the millions of people. There's a documentary about it called "The Act of Killing." It's pretty tough, but it's very interesting how they put that. So when you open the slightly possibility of putting someone down. By legal terms, you open like a big space to mistakes, man.
Yeah, it's a Pandora's box, because, you know, for every one that everybody's happy, like if Jeffrey Dahmer gets put to death, everybody's happy about it. On the other side, you have a journalist getting put to death for quote unquote treason for exposing like a political issue or something like that, right? Which is, people like to think that like people are like, oh well, that doesn't happen because not in America or whatever. And it's like, well, it happens in Russia, like, and it like happens, and it's happened like all through our history. So like, let's not pretend that it's not going to. Yeah. Yeah. Fuck, man. It's a really tough subject because again, like you say that, and I totally agree. But
okay, that's
but they're just some people, man. Well, I want to bring it back. Well, Emily, you give your 2 cents 'cause I don't think
well,
you really.
Just like I'm very much on the same boat as you are, Matt. Like I sit here and I listen to you, Joel, and I agree with everything that you say. But then I think about it and I think like, okay, where's the line? Like where is it okay? And like in my head, it's just like we've said it before too. Like anything to do with children. Like if you. That is like, you know what, if you like I don't even know how to explain my thoughts on this. Like I don't know why I chose this topic.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and it's like if you feel as a criminal that you have the right to interfere in somebody's life and ruin them, whether it be rape, murder, any of them, if you feel you have the right to lay your hands on somebody and do that to somebody, then I feel the authorities have the right to do the same to you.
What?
Well, I misworded that.
To punish you.
Yeah, to punish you. And if the extent is the death penalty, then that is where you set yourself in that position.
Okay, well, I think the question is like, what line do we give the death penalty for?
I understand what you're coming from, and like, even though we disagree in the central point, I do understand what you're coming from. But what when the atrocities are made by the authorities? I mean, should we judge the guys in Vietnam the same way that we would judge someone that did this in a non-war society? I mean, in the Vietnam War, there was a lot of misconduct by American troopers towards the people there.
Yeah.
Should we, should these people now, 30, 20 years later, just like be judged by, hey, you know that you killed someone there and was a civilian, or you saw someone, or you raped someone there in Vietnam 20 years ago. Now you have to put down to you're gonna be killed now for that.
Well, in a case like that, I feel like they're like this. To actually go through with the death penalty, you need solid, confident evidence. And in a case like that, like 20 years ago, an instance of war in Vietnam, there's just not the evidence. We know that the soldiers did that and went through with actions like that, and we just don't have the evidence to put on one single soldier to send them all the way through to the death penalty.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, like, you have like, illegitimate children and stuff like that as evidence to back up those types of things. But
so who's the authority? That's what I'm asking. Who's the authority to say who should be put down or not? Yeah,
because like you could say, well, the jury of your peers, but like no, you can't be put to death by 12 idiots. Seriously though. I mean, not all jury people are idiots, but I mean, especially in a case of a mass murder, you have to find people that are quote unquote objective and have never heard of it or whatever. But so like, how do you find those people? And then,
especially in our society,
and
where
those
everything is at your fingertips.
Yeah, and those people are so easily swayed by whoever's on the stand or whatever, and so like the idea of a jury of your peers is kind of like the best ideological thing you can think of. Really, but even that doesn't work. So, man, I don't know, you'd have to take it on a really case by case basis, which I think like they do. Like, I think I could be wrong about this, but I think there is you can seek the death penalty in Canada. but it's just like some crazy.
It takes like way longer.
Well, it's like you have to prove it. Like I could be completely wrong about that. I might be wrong, but like I don't know. It's again, it's such a tough moral question because I do think that there are people that should be put down. You know, every once in a while, you know, like every couple decades or every decade, you know, there's somebody that's just like, oh, you know, it seems more and more now, you know, every time somebody, you're right about the stuff with kids. Like anytime there's a story of like a kidnapping with a kid and like they found the body in like the woods or whatever in like a box or something, and you're just like, what the what the fuck is wrong with these people? And like, it kind of goes back to what you said, Joao. Like I can't believe that there's not something like mentally wrong with that person, because like I'm sure all of us sit here as rational people and think like, I don't know how you get there. I don't know how you cross the line of like, yeah, this is okay. Taking this kid is okay. Doing this horrible thing to them is okay. Like I don't know how you can mentally cross that barrier. So, like, my brain says that there must be something wrong with that person. But maybe they just have, I mean, I like things that other people think are stupid and weird. Not, like, gross and terrible things, but, you know, I like, you know, sitting in my house and painting all day versus, you know, going out and climbing a mountain. Some people fucking like flying through the air on squirrel suits. I think that's nuts. Right? But like, so do you think, but is it a defect, or is it just a spectrum of like weirdness, and on this most extreme weirdness spectrum is these people that are murdering and raping and killing people?
I think that's scarier than actually just people being mentally insane.
Yeah, I think so too.
The fact that people do go to that extreme. There are those extreme people out there rather than the mentally ill.
Who are totally
well, no, there are the mentally ill, of
totally,
course. I'm not saying that.
I'm saying it's scarier when he's not mentally ill and just at that extreme.
It's just like
we actually someone made a point once, and I just remember it was funny because about the act of killing, right? Mm-hmm. We see a lot in the films, and where the guy just like goes to the bad guy and just aim the gun and pa, and like he feels shit. Now, if you talk to someone that, like a cop, a good guy actually, that actually had to do it before the other did it.
Yeah.
Talk to like a very healthy person that had to kill someone. How do they feel about it? Even though if it was a bad, they feel stuff that we never see in films. You know, there's a I guess like even like a healthy feeling into not wanting to kill. You know, so that's why I think that I trust and I hope that with the new brain discoveries we could improve how we rehabilitate these people.
Aren't there moral questions around that though too? Like moral questions of changing genetics, you know, without people's consent and stuff like that.
It's all new now.
Yeah.
It's like a neuroscience.
Yeah.
Neuroscience, right?
Yeah.
That's what we call it in English. Yeah. So this it's new. Like so what they are doing now, they are studying like which areas of the brain actually lights up when you do this, when you do that, and this is actually developing a lot. And I hope for the next 30-40 years we could have more advanced I don't know, surgeries or medicines or whatever the fuck it is to try to change that.
So here's a question.
Because
well, along the death penalty lines, if you can do that, let's say you can ideally do the best part of this and be like, this is the pinpoint where this person is psychotic, and we can take it out, and now they're no longer psychotic.
Yeah.
Let's say you can do that 20 years from now.
All right.
Do the taxpayers of a nation still want like want to pay for probably what is an insanely expensive procedure for a mass murderer, for like how many people are we gonna have to do this for?
Okay. Now,
Do they want to do that? I'm not saying like us.
yeah.
I'm saying like the mass of people. Are they gonna want to say, hey, yeah, let's fix everybody because we can, even though it's probably gonna cost us a lot and spend a lot of time, or, let's put them in a prison, or let's put the bullet in their head.
But Matt, I think that these researchers are not just towards murderers. Like the research about depression and all.
But that's
that
what we're
stuff.
talking about, right?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that the researchers or the money spent is not only on that.
Right, but when it comes down to, okay, we have this procedure that we can do.
When it comes down to that, I would just like to point something out and just like let's make a film here. What if the guy that murders was your son? And he has a very, very nasty disease. He was created, it's nothing about the creation, nothing about the environment, nothing about he was just born with a fucking problem, would you think that differently?
I don't know that I would. Like I would probably think that it would be my responsibility if it was possible to take it out of them genetically. I would think that it would be more my responsibility than society's responsibility.
But it is society because we are inserting them, and we were lucky.
No, I mean like the responsibility of the choice between, okay, we're going to put your son to death, or you can have this procedure done.
And I think that's like, even like throwing that idea into it, like, oh, your kid is the one doing the killing, I think that even throws another moral thing into it. Because I'm sitting here, you said that, and I'm thinking, like, I don't have any children, so I can't say, right? Maybe when I do have children.
What if it was like your brother or your parent?
Like, yeah, see, like, that's the thing is, like, I don't know if I would be able to excuse that. Like, I don't know if I personally would be able to be like, yeah, you know what? But I still wouldn't be down to kill them. But I wouldn't be down. Like, I don't know what I would do. Do you know? I don't
think I'd be down to defend like
I wouldn't
a
defend
family
them.
member who did something heinous necessarily.
It's not a matter of defending.
Yeah.
But if the procedure was there, and it was proven that he actually had a mental issue, I mean,
well, now stuff like that. It gets onto the side of like, well, what is a mental issue? Because it gets onto the same slippery slope as the death penalty. Is like, well, okay, so are people going to have like homosexuality taken out of their kids? Are people gonna have, stuff like? Definitely, it will happen.
Oh, for sure.
So, like, there's a bunch of moral issues surrounding stuff like that too.
Yeah,
things like gene therapy and things. So, I mean, I guess the point is like, should you put? This sounds crass, but should you put that much effort into what is ultimately, crassly, a fairly simple problem to fix, which is to eliminate a person with a defect? Again, like not a defect, a
threatening,
a violent tendency.
I don't know. I mean, all I'm saying here is like
the option is there.
Yeah, the option, and like generally, I'm against. And again, I repeat that generally, I'm against death penalty. But do that to someone in my family and give me a gun. Like I would contradict myself.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. We're all gonna be. We're all hypocritical in this type of situation, right? Lambo,
I'm
like, what do you got? You looked like you had something to say.
I was yawning.
Oh.
Well, with like this procedure and stuff, I feel like if you're gonna go into somebody's mind, and if you can expertly, precisely pull out the one single DNA that is the issue, great, that's awesome. But in reality, it probably can't and won't happen like that for a very long time. So when that person comes out of that procedure, are they still the same person? Your your son, your mother, your brother, your sister goes into this procedure, comes out, and who is this person?
Yeah, I found myself thinking, like, what is the moral difference between that and a lobotomy? You know?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a totally different thing coming up because now they have the technology to actually understand.
I get that, but you're still
Like messing
you're
with
still
someone's brain.
changing a piece of somebody. You know, a fundamental working in their mind.
Yeah.
And like maybe that does change their psychosis or whatever.
Well,
But it will also change. It will have,
Effects
unknown
on-
effects to the rest of them, right?
And
I think
Not necessarily that they're bad, but just like that's just.
But if the option,
It's about the moral
Yeah,
issue
man,
of it,
but,
you know.
But you know that the option will be this or death penalty.
I mean, to throw another side to it, like
I mean,
would even if this happened, we do it to somebody, does that excuse what they've done? If they've murdered countless people, does them getting something changed in their mind excuse the fact that they've murdered all
Right.
these people? Like, what do we do
They're still
then?
allowed to walk the
Then
earth.
what do we do then?
They're still, they're still free, even more free than they were before. They're not tortured anymore. But the people that are left in the wake of their destruction, family members and stuff that have a loved one killed,
yeah.
They still have
They want
those person.
justice.
That person might not. Like, okay, so maybe you can take the guilt out while you're up there. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just kind of.
I
It's not
understand. I
'cause-
understand. It's a tragedy.
Well, I think we have to kind of float the line a little bit between in cases of like heinous crimes and stuff, between compassion and punishment. Like, man, I don't
Listen.
know, because
I know the tragedy. The tragedy still will be there. The family still will be mourning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the family still will be mourning. You cannot erase that from the past, even if you change that guy's mind. But a tragedy could happen without someone murdering another. Like, let's say your kid is just walking and a train got him and killed him. It
Yeah.
is a tragedy. You cannot
Mhm.
change that.
right.
So you cannot change what is in the past. You can only adjust what's in the future. I guess, and towards your question, my answer would be no. I don't think that we should forget that this person did that. So there would be like maybe a time that he would be like in prison or in like a rehabilitation center for.
But then you still let him
15,
out. You
20
still let him
years.
go free.
If it's proven that his brain or this person is actually able to function in society.
I would have to say, like, when coming to that, it could just be a huge ticking time bomb type of
I
thing.
agree.
Like he gets out, it's just like it could just go like
bad.
that, snap back, and he's back. And you mentioned, you can change the future. What is more certain about fixing the future? Either getting rid of the criminal indefinitely, done, future, he's for sure not going to kill anybody else. Or spend months, years, millions, dollars on rehabilitation for this guy to come out with the possible risk of another incident of him going off the chains.
Yeah,
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
not even that. Like, I was during this whole conversation, I was like, man, this is a lot of effort being put into people
We don't do
who,
well,
don't really. I mean, you don't want to
Saying
say
that.
that about people that maybe have mental episodes and stuff like that. I mean, that's a different scenario, right?
I think there has to be a line. I think we do have to because we're contradicting ourselves because there's no line. Like, I think
Yeah.
the people who do terrible, awful things that are like, there's no reason, they're not mentally, like that's where the line should be. Do you know? Like, people who, are schizophrenic and stab somebody by it, like, they're not in control in that moment. So maybe those people we help. But the people who, like Charles Manson, who just murder people for no reason, they don't deserve that.
Lambert, you also made a good point about maybe for the next 20 years we don't craft it at what we do until there. Now, what I think is that we put way too many people into jail.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sure.
for
Way too many people for no reason.
Sure.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
for stupid reason. Oh, he stole a TV, or you know, he sold some marijuana on the street, and now it's even legal. You know, so I mean, a lot of these people that were in prison by because they were selling drugs. Now the
drug is
the
legal.
drug is
Yeah.
actually a business. You know, so we put too many people into jail, and the states is terrible with that. I'm sorry, man. I'm not. You know.
Dude, I
But-
lived there
but-
for like 3 years when I was an infant.
But I don't know how much you care about it.
I don't.
He's like, no.
This same documentary called "The House I Live In," they just like telling how they put a lot of people into prison there and became a business.
Mhm.
It became a business. Like you can own a jail
Yep.
because it's a profitable business. I mean, it's slavery again.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know, so the thing is, we just banalize prison. Whereas until we don't have that solution for people that committed this kind of murder, we should not put too many people into prison anymore, you know.
And
like,
do what with them?
and reserve the prison to actually people that cannot be in society, you know.
Okay. So
Like massive murders and that
So what do you do about
Right,
like petty
yeah.
criminals?
yeah, what do you do?
for what?
People that steal stuff and things like that.
Well, man, there's a lot of
You just Let them walk.
not let them walk. We do have a society with laws, and we could manage to make a punishment where they don't go into jail and become more violent because they meet more violent people, and that's like how we perpetuate the system. I know that because also where I come from in Brazil, the prisonal system is terrible. It's terrible. So sometimes you put someone into prison because he was selling a little bit of drugs or stealing a little bit of television, and then in prison they met these high fucking stupid murderers and like violent people, and they become violent because the system in the prison is violent.
Yeah, it's what they're surrounded by.
What if prisons were like a school that you had to go to class? Like it was like locked in there. People were locked in there, but it was like a school. Like you lived in like a a dorm
Like
type.
a boarding school.
Yeah.
I don't think that would really change too much.
No?
Because you're just changing the environment around these criminals.
Well,
while
that's the
just-
idea, though, isn't it? Like, if
Yeah,
you have to take them out of a
but-
bad situation, and like, if the idea is to not put them into a situation that just breeds violence and puts them around people that are more violent, well, then make the situation that you're putting them in, not a violent one.
Right,
Make it one
but-
that is not an oppressive one. Make it one that is, not something that people would want to go to, but something that is like at least useful. And even the idea of like
But
yeah, go on.
But then, like, it comes to the point where it's like you do a heinous crime or whatever, and you go to jail.
Well, we were talking about the heinous crimes,
Separate.
being separate, right?
Okay. Anyways, you do a crime. You go to prison, which is now this awesome dorm school room place that you're not paying rent at. You're getting free food. You're
It's
going
never
to school.
gonna be awesome. It's never gonna be awesome.
Well,
That's-
what you guys are explaining right now, the school scenario with dorm rooms, you do a crime, shit, yeah, I'm going to college. Is
Well,
what it sounded like. Because, like,
Well,
I mean, like, is that the worst thing?
man?
Is that
free college,
Well,
do a
yeah.
crime, yeah, I'll go
So-
hold
so
up a
It probably
couple
costs
thrift
less
stores.
than the prison
The person
system.
that would go out of that at least would be educated.
Okay, I'm going to go
Afterwards.
hold up some thrift stores, some random-ass stores so I can go and get free college.
You probably wouldn't do that.
No,
I mean,
probably
but-
wouldn't do that.
Well,
I
I mean,
wouldn't-
if college, college would have to be free across the whole society.
Yeah.
In order for that, which is not a bad idea,
Not a
and
bad idea at
many
all.
societies
Not
have
at
it,
all,
and
yeah.
the societies that have that are also generally
Are
the institutions
with
that
the
are
better
the
prisons.
with the prisons that have more of a rehabilitation type scenario to their institutions.
Sure.
I mean, it was just a kind of idea that came into my head while I was sitting here. Another thought, like you kind of mentioned, like a slavery sort of thing. Like what would be bad about having prisoners, people who have violated the law, work as like manufacturing labor.
Other than
do.
children in Indonesia.
Yeah.
It's
Like, why is that bad?
Well, because you're not paying them enough.
But you're feeding them.
You're feeding them and
putting a
making
roof
them,
over
and
their
they
head.
violated the
Yeah.
society already.
Oh yeah. So a lot of these people that were in prison, and you did that, they were not well off.
But we're not taking
Yeah.
anything
Did that.
from
So
them.
they
It depends
they
on how
did
you run
not
the.
have the
Oh, I
right
You
agree.
can't run it like a
opportunities.
sweatshop, right?
Oh,
and,
totally.
and that's what they are doing there.
Yeah.
Well, they definitely aren't getting $15 an hour. That's for sure.
Well, the point is, there are a lot of things in this discussion that we have to take into consideration if we think about like why these people have to work or not. I rather they study, so probably they would get out of there.
I mean, most
better
prisons have
educated,
the ability to
but
do
The
that.
problem is that when it becomes a business, what actually sustain a business is to keep running.
Yeah.
And what fuels the prison is people. So they feed up out of people. And this is not okay.
Yeah.
And when you take these statistics and you look at, and there's a lot of all those statistics in the documentary I told you about the house I live in. A lot of these people in prison, they were in poor neighborhoods, poor conditions, poor families. I mean, poverty surrounded them for a whole shit lot of time, and also not even to mention for the racial aspect
Yeah.
of that. You know,
Yeah.
much more black people were being imprisoned than white people.
Yeah.
And you know, we had to take those things in consideration.
Right. All of our ideas are kind of based on the idea that everybody in prison deserves to be there, which is not necessarily the case. In a
No.
lot of cases, it's not the
I mean,
case.
think about it. You see, your family starving. That's what happened in Brazil a lot. And you have the opportunity of selling a little bit of drug and like feeding everyone, but then you're caught and put into prison.
Mm-hmm.
How fucking fair is that?
Yeah.
No, I
Which
I get
society
that.
is that, man?
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. I mean, that's like I said, like that's the fundamental issue there with. Fuck. I
think
just
this
said
all
it 2
just
seconds
relates
ago.
back to that our society is like fucked, and we just need to figure our shit out. Because it all
Yeah.
it's all connected. It all is a giant loop. Like every point that we make, and we're like, oh well, this is a thing.
Yeah.
It goes back to the way that our society is set up, and the fact that nothing.
Well, corruption just like
Yeah.
pervades everything, every single industry, and like what you're talking about with, like it becoming a business. I mean, that's the fundamental flaw with making social services like a for-profit industry like medicine and like prisons and like road work and stuff like that. Like eventually, like there are lines for stuff like that where it's just like, well, it's never going to be a profitable thing unless you constantly have customers for this terrible thing. Like
Sure, and that's what happened. Like, so what they did in the States a few years ago, they lobbied the government. A lot of these people that were investing in the fucking prisons, they lobbied the government to actually drop the amount of drugs that people could actually carry. So if they were carrying a little bit more of that, they would go to prison because they needed to feed that fucking system with people so they can make money. So it is a fucking disgusting problem.
yeah, man, it's brutal. I want to kind of cycle back to vigilante justice because we touched on it a little bit, but like the idea of somebody deserving to die, like I think we could all at least sympathize or like to think that we could potentially kill somebody who was harming somebody that we loved or something like that. Like you walk in on somebody, God forbid, like raping somebody that you care about. Like, man, I don't like the rage could take over in a pretty significant way, right? Mm-hmm. And when people like, because that happens sometimes, the people like that end up on trial that have killed somebody in like a fit like that, and I'm always kind of of the opinion of like, I don't consider that person a danger to society.
No, because it's
No.
a one-off situation.
Yeah, like
It's almost self-defense.
Well, I
like-
mean, yeah, it's
Self-revenge for sure.
it's a a circumstance in which none of us can imagine being in. And like you said, it's a one-off circumstance, you know? Like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to kill anybody else unless they fucking rape my kid again, like, or whatever. There was a really great movie called A Time to Kill with Samuel L. Jackson and Matthew McConaughey from like the 90s. And Matthew McConaughey plays his lawyer. Samuel L. Jackson's this like father who kills two guys that rape his daughter. And yeah, it's just like a really interesting movie that kind of surrounds the whole issue. But so yeah, I'm curious your guys' thoughts on that, and like thoughts on like a potential like even Punisher type person, you know, like somebody who is technically a serial killer going around killing people.
Like a Blade Runner, but for people.
Well, no, not somebody that's hired out. Somebody that's taken it into their own hands, like a Punisher, and has just like
To kill
just
all the
gone
bad
is
people.
killing bad people in like a fucking massacre, terrible way. But like,
Dexter.
yeah, Dexter, sure.
I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
like
that
what would our society's kind of thoughts be on something like that actually, you know, taking form?
Oh man, I've seen this happen back home. It doesn't work. It would get to a point where people would get way too violent, and they would like again. If you like, if you
Just constantly escalates.
institutionalize that, and we would have like very fucked up shit. You
Well,
know?
institutionalized that is a police force, but when people argue that a police force or a justice system isn't doing its job, that's when something like a vigilante will you know come out and start to take off people, right?
But they don't follow the laws as they should, you know.
Right. But
I
like
mean,
the idea is that they can't follow the law in order to get justice because I mean, like you would know as well as anybody coming from Brazil, like the corruption that pervades, you know, high level government people and stuff like that to the point of like, well, the law is not going to help me here.
Okay, so get that. There's an example there. A couple of years ago, there was this vigilante community there that they used to act in the favelas. So if something happened around there, they would be called up and they would make an example of the person. This guy had stole something from someone, and the vigilantes called him and caught him and tied him up to a pole and beat the crap out of him almost to death out of something that he had stolen. Now, how is that fair?
Yeah, I'd argue that it's not. I mean, like, my thought was more, again, along the lines of heinous crimes.
Yeah, killing.
You know?
Murdering.
But then like the perceived route to justice is laid onto the Punisher. So in JWoww's case, the vigilantes perceived justice was to beat the crap out of the guy.
Yeah.
And that was all left up to the Punisher guys.
Yeah.
So if you have that type of vigilante running down, his form of justice may be a little bit off, and it is all up to him on what he's going to be doing with those people, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, that's true. Do you think that that we might be more inclined to accept somebody like that because of how pervasive something like superheroes and things like that are in our culture and how we idolize those types of things?
I guess so, but I guess even that, man, I like, you know much more about comics than I do. But
Well,
like,
yeah, but like
but
we
like
know how it
even-
pervades our
even-
culture.
Even there, I've seen like I think the last few Batmans brought up a little bit more of the darkness, you know, involving the kind of
well,
vigilante
it
type,
usually
you know?
asks those types of questions.
And like it's much. I think it's much. It's more accurate than it was like the Batman from the 90s. You
Yeah.
know? The Batman they portrayed with the Christopher Nolan films is more like he has more like a dark character. However, he has a moral conduct that it's above a lot of people.
Right.
I mean, who are we going to be trusting to do that? Like, not even our judges that don't kill, but, you know, judge people. it's hard to trust them sometimes.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they're corrupted.
Well, that's the idea of a vigilante is like, yeah, along Lambert's lines, it is like you are up to the moral standards of that vigilante at that point, right? Like the law becomes their moral compass. But I mean, along the same lines of like a beneficial dictator, I mean, if their moral compass is good and they are technically doing good things for people, like it could be hard. I mean, like these types of things haven't really actually happened, not to the extent of like, you know, a single person being like this beacon of justice in a city or something like that because it's so corrupt or whatever. Like nothing, like I can't recall anything like that ever happening. But like for real, you know. The idea of it though is really interesting because I think because corruption is everywhere, right? Like we just talked about. So like the idea of somebody being like, well, you can't work within that corruption. So I'm gonna, you know, cut through it somehow. I mean, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm curious about if maybe we would be more accepting of it because of our view on superheroes and stuff.
I don't know. I would be fucking afraid of it because then you're creating a more of an afraid. You're creating fear instead of the sense of, hey, you shouldn't
right
do
or
that
wrong,
because you know, what if it was with you?
Yeah,
You know,
that's
you're
an
not,
interesting
like,
way to put it.
Educating people, you're making them live in fear, which is different.
Yeah, that's true. Emily?
My brain just shut off. Like I think that is an interesting like idea, and I hear what JWoww was saying of like where's the line? Again, I think like, I think again you just have to like if you did something, you know, like if I stole your car, Matt, like what's to say that you wouldn't be like go fucking kill Emily, right? Like.
Well, it steals Lambert's car. I would
Steal
if
Lambert's
you're gonna
car.
steal someone's car.
Don't steal mine. Mine's really bad.
I'm trying to paint the picture of like of a just vigilante,
Like
of somebody that wouldn't be doing
to kill the people that we were trying to say that the death penalty to
Yeah.
cross that line.
like I'm
instead
just
of the government killing them, it would be a vigilante. Is that what
yeah,
you-
like the interesting thing like JWoww said about like the Nolan Batman films would be like, well, you kind of bring a sort of realism to it, the idea that somebody could actually do that. I mean, it would have to be somebody with insane capabilities and resources and stuff, right? But like, it's just, I don't know. My thought is just, would we as a society start cheering that person on versus you know, wanting the cops to catch them? The cops would no doubt be after them.
Yeah.
But like as people, would we be like, yeah?
I feel
maybe
like
some
we
people
would.
do.
I
Maybe
feel
some
like-
people
Yeah.
do. But like that's as crazy as people get sometimes. Like in the case of the vigilantes back in the favelas, what I say, there were people that were actually supporting, saying that you know he shouldn't be stealing stuff. And yeah, so there are people that support it. I it's very different than my vision, but it's tough. I don't think that you don't go to the root of the problem again. You know,
Right.
you just like you stain the surface, and then more bad guys are gonna come, and then like that's why the Batman comics is over 60 years. So, you know, like
Well, like, I guess another thought on the whole death penalty side of things would be like, can you fix it? And is it worth, you know, attempting? Because,
yes.
I mean, we live in such fear of so many things. Or, I mean, like, the thought of being murdered or raped or something like that is obviously terrifying. But, man, I don't even really know where I'm going with this. I'm just trying to think, like, is it an epidemic of a problem that we need to be associating significant resources to, I don't know, finding ways to fix people who have, you know, psychosomatic problems or whatever, or violent tendencies and stuff like that, or just live with the threat of them?
It's a tough question. I think we should, of course, think about the problem. I think there's an actual solution, but if we don't think that if we think that there's no way we can change, we probably wouldn't even try, you know. So my thing is like, it sounds a little bit utopic, like a utopia, but we have to think that we can solve it, or at least make it better. Otherwise, it's just like, oh, you know, it's not worth the thought, or it's not worth fighting for, or it's not worth discussing for.
There's like, I don't even know if even if there was a way to solve it, if you could, like, if because there are those people that are so good at hiding it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's part of it.
And like that's and like there's so many fucked up things that happen every day that we don't even know that happens.
Right.
Right? So like
a lot of things happen that people don't get caught doing and whatever.
Until way later, or even at all.
Yeah.
Right? So like, is there any real way? Like, what? So does everyone have to go in and get tested? Like, what if I go in and get tested? Like, I'm not gonna murder anyone. I don't feel like I'm gonna murder anyone. But like,
yeah, that's interesting.
What if my brain, there's something wrong with it? So do I have to go?
That's
get
an
my
interesting
brain
point. Yeah.
Messed up with, even though I am totally sane and like. Well, I don't know if I'm totally sane, but like, I'm not gonna go murder. Like, we're not gonna go on a killing spree, right? But like, where's the line? Like, because I don't think that's a very beautiful thought,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's a realistic thought.
Well, 'cause if that's interesting, 'cause if there is, you know, such a thing, or will be such a thing as being able to, you know, pinpoint this type of issue and take it out, then you would be able to pinpoint it before it exhibited any symptoms, right? You know, before somebody had like an
So would you do
episode
it
of
on
something.
babies? Like,
Yeah.
would you
So
be-
do you now alter these people who, I mean, maybe they never have an episode, right? And
Yeah.
maybe that part of their brain is key to some other intelligence that they have, you know, like
some people with mental disabilities are really good at like playing
Exactly.
the piano or doing those kinds
Exactly.
of things,
you know, they see the world in a different way. There's different perspectives that
like autism.
I understand. I just don't think that we should put a bullet on their heads.
yeah.
I agree with
Yeah.
that, but I think it's just so much more of a complex topic, like we've been saying. Like there is no simple answer to this.
No,
Yeah.
but
It
I
really
think
is-
we should. We
it's
can
gray, it's
evolve,
not
you
black or
know? I
white.
mean, look at where we are as a society. We evolve in so many things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some stuff is fucked up, but we evolved in a lot of things. My thing is like, why not? Why can't we find a solution to the problem? You
Mhm.
know, whether it's like putting these people into maximum security and releasing or easing out into people that did not commit how do you say
Heinous.
heinous. It looks like the animal. What's it? Anyway,
Heinous.
crimes, and you know, it's a differentiation. I think we can actually get to a point now, and we are evolving scientifically as well, which I think is it would help us in the future.
Yeah, I totally agree, but I also think it's a different question of like, would or should we, because like there's a question of like, well, why not for stuff like, you know, why not try solar energy, you know, like those types of things that progress us forward. But the idea of why not play with people's brains,
It's not
is
playing,
like-
Matt. It's not playing.
Well,
It's
it
not-
is
it's
until you
not-
fix it.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
It's
You'd have
not-
to-
it's
you have to
not-
play to figure it out, man.
Well, but either that or a bullet. That's
No, I'm not
you know,
I'm just like saying, like, because, well, the the problem with the death penalty is the ideological issue of like state ordered execution. If you're gonna talk about fixing people's mental problems, that sounds great. Just like putting down people who deserve it sounds great. But the fundamental moral issue of tinkering with people's minds to quote unquote fix them is a really weird question.
Dude,
that goes way beyond
we're
just
doing
criminals.
This to the millions right now. How many people are taking antidepressive that are not actually tested
that's
right,
true.
You know? I mean,
But they have a choice in that.
How many people are taking fucking drugs and they don't even know what it's gonna do with their brains? You know?
Yeah, man. Oh, I totally agree with that. Like, I mean, you're talking about permanent, fundamental changes that, like, alter a person's person. You know?
Yeah. But
Permanently.
hopefully, because they used to be.
Hopefully for this select few group of people, but like you're opening up a Pandora's box, like no different than the bullet to the head and the death penalty. You're opening up a Pandora's box of moral issues of, well, then what's the line for criminal behavior that we want to pinpoint and take out of people?
I don't think that I'm opening the one that is the same as that, because it's new. At least it's new, you know.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
We've been thinking about this death penalty for ages now, and we didn't get into a conclusion. I think it's better than it was before, maybe. But, you know, at least it's a new moral thought into it, and we can actually get to somewhere new.
I think the study is interesting, but I just think the actual act of doing it and, like, having that be the new death penalty, like having that be the ultimate punishment is like is another moral, like.
Yeah, and like I find that an interesting point. Like, well, it's a new problem. Like the death penalty was like an archaic idea, and it has its problems, and we know its problems, and so maybe try something else that probably does have problems, but different problems, and maybe not as bad problems. That's an interesting point of view of it, I think. It's still like it's a total, like we could do a whole podcast on on genetic engineering and stuff like that, which I think we should, because that would be really interesting.
We should definitely research a lot for that.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely some interesting questions. Maybe that's where we'll cut it off for the day. It's been a pretty good chat, kind of a serious chat, but interesting. I'm glad we did it.
Cool.
It was informative.
Well,
I'd like to thank Emily Paton for stopping by and joining us on the Slack line, gracing us with her presence and ideas and
Thanks
topic for
me.
the week. Yeah, we'll have her back again soon. Thanks for Lambert for rolling out of bed and coming downstairs to join us. Lambo the Roommate in the house.
Thank you, Lambo.
Skit.
That's so sweet.
That is it for JWoww
Wow.
and the boss.
Boss is coming!
That's a made-up dumb
it's a good
fairy tale
boss.
name, you
He's my boss.
We will see you guys next time on the Slack line.
Thank you, boss.